1. I used to work for a major aircraft manufacturer. Thanks, 2020. I was still pretty green at the time. This was about 5 years ago. Having came into the industry with absolutely zero experience after running away from retail management. I was on the manufacturing side of things and started at the very bottom, deburr and fabrication. My job was to take parts that came hot off the machines and get rid of sharp edges, scratches, etc. Basically make them safe for handling and ready for the next process. Easy but super fast-paced and dirty work. I was really good at my job. Now, being in a facility with over 10,000 employees, the systems aren't perfect. Each order and part has a checklist of processes that follows it until it terminates and becomes a larger assembly. Each individual action on that checklist is assigned a certain number of hours. Some engineer decides how long it should take to complete. Once complete, inspection buys the order and sells it to the next shop. We are to do no work that isn't assigned to our shop. This part is important. This is how areas monitor their budgets, but it's wildly inaccurate. Some parts would take 10 minutes and pay 20 hours, while others would take 12 hours and pay 30 minutes. But they said, it all evens out in the end. Now for the fun bit. In training, my lead explained that a couple of managers had a sort of handshake deal, that we would do their process in order to streamline specific parts. These parts would travel across campus a mile or two, just to have a vinyl-like protective coating, peeled by hand and then returned. They always got damaged in transport, so they cut out the middleman to save time and materials. So these parts come in, and I peel and process them without issue. We get a new hire who I relay the information to. He forgets to peel some small parts, and they make it all the way to production. Because this is union work, there's a lot of, not my job, not my problem. No one else peeled the parts. The painters painted over this protective coating that's only held on by static. Now, if we scrap a part in our area, the cost is negligible, usually as they haven't been processed. But the further along the parts get, the more expensive they become due to all the labor. They scrap about 30 of these things at about $200 each. Our manager and her boss come back furious. But he's new, so he gets a verbal warning. My turn. I get a big part, about the size of a Miata, about 1/4 inch thick fat aluminium. Already expensive just because of the sheer size. And it's gone through several processes already. I peel it and notice a giant wave right in the middle. The part is not usable. I call my lead over and he agrees, so he calls the manager. Manager waddles over and asks, "Who the fuck peeled this?" I tell her that I did, because it's in the paperwork. She calls the boss and tells him I am incompetent and to come see what I did. He asks the same and why. I explain the understanding we had with the previous shop, and that if I did not peel it, no one else would, and it would get to the end of the line, be scrapped, and I would get written up. He huffs and they puff, but don't write me up because I had already accepted a promotion to another area, and would be out of their hair soon. They gave us strict instruction to no longer honor that understanding. I got that same big part a couple days later as a replacement for the scrapped one. I do my best to deburr everything and leave the coating on. Sure enough, about a week later, guess who's waddling over? The director of fabrication and his 2 underlings. "You want to explain to me why you cost us $20,000? Huh? You signed off your job as complete on this part." Shows me a photo of a painted part that had been permanently attached to a fuselage section. "But did nothing. It made it all the way to the assembly without being peeled. This was already a rush because the last one got scrapped too." "Both of your managers informed me that peeling is not my job, and that I would be written up for doing so. Me peeling the part was the reason the last one was scrapped, even though peeling revealed a structural issue with the part that was present. I explained this exact situation would happen, but was told the same again." "You're getting a write-up. I never said that.
It's your job to follow the instructions on the sheet. You should know that by now.
Show me my work order where it states this shop is responsible for peeling this part, and I'll sign wherever you want. A couple days later, the director sends an email to our shop that our manager is being transferred to another area, and to hold all parts this understanding pertained to, until they could alter the instructions forms for all their work orders. Thankfully, that was my last week, and my next area was infinitely slower paced, cleaner, climate-controlled, and more laid back. No more metal dust covering my clothes, hair, and inside of my nose. 2. I worked at a clothing store in a mall for a year and a half. It was not fun. But I was thinking back to my time there recently, and I forgot this golden gem of PettyRevenge. So a new girl had just been hired, as many new people did in that job, and right away you could tell she thought she was hot shit. We're talking acting like a manager, talking how many hours she had, and worst of all, she wouldn't shut up about the dudes she was banging, and how the money she got from them was the most important part. To put it lightly, she was a cold-hearted bitch who made everyone feel bad about their insignificant lives, as she put it. Here's where things go down. In our store, all the racks were milled steel bars and hooks, so really hard to break and really expensive. They could, however, be bent out of shape if enough heavy coats stay on them for long periods of time. Ms. Hot Shit here thought it would be a good idea to impress the management by putting all the coats on the same rack using the milled steel bars instead of a circular rack that wouldn't warp. I protested, of course, as I'd been there longer, but she said, "I get paid more than you, so do what I say." She got hired as a key holder out of the gate, so she made $1 more than I did per hour. I go along with it and put the heavy winter coats up on the milled steel and go about my life. While 2 weeks later the milled steel is of course warped, and when management saw this they flipped. Cheapo store, any cost was bad to them. Anyway, she blames it on me, and I get written up for it. Now I refused to sign, so they gave me less hours, which also cut my pay. Because she lied, I was now making 50% less than before, and had a formal written complaint against me. To say I was ticked off wouldn't even start, so I devised a plan to go get back at her. You see, the dry wall on the center pillars that sustained water damage for an early melt earlier that year was making them extremely soft. However, they provide some of the largest coverage of shelf space in the entire store, meaning basically a good 20% of shelf space couldn't be used. Now the kicker is Ms. Hotshit didn't know about this, as she came in a week after it had happened, and to the naked eye you wouldn't think the pillar couldn't be used, as there were banners on it to try and hide the yellowing. I may have suggested what a waste not being able to have product on the pillars was, and how if someone could come up with a nice display, it would bring in a lot of customers because they could see it from the mall main floor. We were just off the food court. Her eyes lit up. Now here's the thing. I was taking a small break to a nice snowy lake cabin the next day, and the people she had working with her were the manager or the temps who were not allowed to handle marketing and logistics, i.e. putting shelves and rack up on the wall due to their cost and the incident that got me wrote up. Now I knew she wouldn't want the managers to see it because she wanted all the glory from it. She wanted to show to our 3 stores in the mall that her store was the best while the managers weren't around. So she, being with the temp and them not being able to put up shelving, put the heavy winter clothing on milled steel racks attached to the soft drywall pillars. Within a week, the drywall on the pillars collapsed and ruined $500 worth of product. Now she tried to shift the blame on me, but I was away for the whole week, so it could not have been me because obviously that can happen if I'm in the forest hundreds of miles from civilization. So no dice there, and she promptly got charged with the repair, demoted to sales associate, and written up for what they finally realized was not just this, but the one they wanted me to sign. The repair was $2,500 plus the $500 stock that got destroyed when 40 pounds of drywall came crashing down on it. But I wasn't done yet. You see, our manager in our store specifically was pretty chill, and she's still a personal friend to me. She had a group chat so we could talk off hours and keep up to date. Now, as I mentioned before, she wouldn't shut up about all the men she was playing, and how the only thing that mattered was the money, and boy oh boy, did she use the group chat to say a lot of this. Sometimes one of these dudes would come around and take her for lunch. Let's just say when she was in the back for a little while finishing something up, that I let them see the text channel if they promised to not let her know I told them. So often they'd go on their lunch date, and after 1 or 2 days, she'd be down a man. Finally, this boiled over when one of them took her phone and saw how many guys she'd been banging for money, and messaged all of them about how much of a lying cheat she was. After 2 months, her fountain of man money dried up, and now demoted to a sales associate, she didn't have the money to spend on all her lavish nights out or designer clothing. She eventually moved up to another store for more hours and stole money from the till, causing her to get fired. A fitting end to a backstabbing ice queen, I think. I eventually left that job after half a year later to pursue my current job. Three. I was a delivery driver for 6 years at various pizza places, picking up and moving on to greener pastures whenever it suited me. Granted, that only happened a couple of times because I am unfortunately a very loyal employee. To be honest, I should have done that before this whole thing ever even happened. The store I was at was part of a nationwide franchise, and the waters had gotten choppy. All of the managers quit at once, and they just couldn't seem to get one to stick around. It got so bad that the area manager had to come in as acting GM and brought a manager from another store with him. These two are the main characters of this story, well, besides me, obviously. For the purpose of this story, we'll call them Jeff and Kate, and I'll just be me. Jeff was 45, and had been with the company for a long time before I started, worked himself up from the position of driver all the way to being the one to oversee about 20 stores. He was actually married to another area manager. I got along okay with Jeff, for the most part. On the other hand, Kate and I got on like a house on fire, both being ladies of a similar age. She often confided things in me that would soon bite her in the ass. Figuratively. I considered myself a decent employee as far as pizza slingers go, came to work on time, did all the dishes, got along with everyone, and had the best delivery times. Because of this, I usually landed all the best shifts, including opening on Saturdays. If you've never worked a tip job, you know that shift is the most coveted out there. Working through both the lunch and dinner rush before going home is well worth having to get up earlier. That information is relevant to the story, trust me. You see, there are always 2 drivers who do that shift. One comes in earlier and leaves earlier, and I was the one who got to come in just before we flipped on the open sign and went home once dinner rush began to die down. This is also relevant. The final bit of info you need for context is that my brother goes a bit wild at Christmas. His favorite thing to do is book an entire movie theater for everyone he knows to see a movie of his choice. This particular year was when The Last Jedi came out, and he is a Star Wars fanatic, so that was what we were going to see. Unfortunately, it would be at 6 on a Saturday, at least 2 hours before I would get off. At this point, Jeff and Kate had been with us for 3 months without managing to find suitable replacements, and I made an arrangement with the other opening driver to switch shifts because his ended right when I would need to leave to make the movie. I then cleared it with Jeff, and he agreed to let me go at 5:30. I was all set, or so I thought. You see, that Saturday we started busy, very busy. So busy that at 5:30 when I went to hand Jeff my slips, he had already dispatched me out on a double delivery. I took them but reminded him that I needed to leave when I got back. I just hoped the trailers were long enough and that I didn't miss much of the beginning of the movie. I got back from my double, and by that point, it was already 6 and the theater was 20 minutes away. I had to leave. Once again, I went to hand my slips to Jeff, but he got in my face. "You can leave when I say you can leave," he told me. "You're not going to let me?" I asked, incredulous that he was reneging on our deal. I came in early. I did my time, damn it. He looked so very smug. "No." Well, I made a decision right then and there. There are so many pizza jobs out there that they needed me more than I needed them. I took my slip book, the kind that you see in restaurants. I found they're great for delivery because not only can you store all of your slips in them, but they're hard enough for customers to bear down to sign on. Anyway, I slapped that in his hand and said, "Fine then, I quit." It was his turn to look incredulous. After making sure I meant it, he checked me out, and I left the store fuming. I missed the entire opening of my movie. But the story doesn't end there, oh no. You remember how I said Kate would confide in me? She loved to tell me all about how often she and Jeff would meet at a hotel after work. She even horrified me by telling me Jeff would turn off the cameras so they could have sex in the back office when the store was empty, in a chair I had sat in multiple times. Kate was even so obliging to give insignificant details, like the date and time this happened. So I put in an anonymous call to the franchise's HR and told them what to look for when it came to checking the tapes. I told them everything Kate had told me, but I still wasn't content with leaving it there. So I went to my local pizza place. This just happened to be in Jeff's wife's area. Remember when I said she was also an area manager? And I got to gossiping with the workers there while they made my pizza. I was well aware it would make it back to her. Food employees can't keep such juicy gossip to themselves. Jeff got promoted to store manager, then transferred to the same store in his wife's area I went to so she could keep an eye on him. I guess it didn't work out because last I heard, Jeff's wife divorced him and he no longer worked for that franchise. And none of that would have happened if he had just let me leave on time. And if you'd like some more information, there are a few details I left out because I thought that would bog down the story. I'll add them here. 1. Jeff had let the other morning driver, the one whose shift I took, go before me, despite claiming they were too busy for me to go too. 2. I said Jeff and I got along okay, and that was not entirely the truth. Before he started seeing Kate, Jeff had hit on me pretty relentlessly. I turned him down, of course. I am of the firm belief that you do not dip your pen in the company ink. And he did not handle the rejection well. He would often do petty things to get back at me, but it wasn't until this situation that it really got on my nerves. He was the kind of person who acted friendly to your face and did shitty things behind your back, exemplified best by cheating on his wife. His wife had been out of town for a few months, training area managers out of state, which is probably why he got away with the affair for even that long. He would have been caught eventually anyway. His and Kate's relationship was pretty open in our store because neither of them seemed to grasp the concept of discretion. I just happened to be the one who blew the whistle. 5. Finally, 5. Jeff had a grudge against my brother because he sued the same company for having to work unpaid overtime. This was his attempt at fucking us both over at once. 4. My wife and I moved into a 64 townhome community that was 10 years old at the time. The Homeowners Association board was comprised of 5 members that were original homeowners when the community started, and had been the sole board members since the community started. Their sense of entitlement was batshit crazy. They thrived on their quarterly walkthrough of the neighborhood, as they would write up every single home for some kind of violation, regardless of how minor the offenses were. Everyone gets a violation letter. Our first letter, the first month living there, was that our garage door paint was starting to peel. It was a 2-centimeter scrape where the panels met. It needed to be repainted. The siding needed to be power washed. There was a patch of green moss behind a bush, and the sliding door on the deck was dirty. There was dirt on the bottom of the door from recent rain, and it needed to be washed. We had 30 days to fix the issues or begin accruing a fee of $25 a day until they are resolved. I asked around, and everyone gets these ridiculously petty letters every quarter. No matter what you did to maintain your townhome, you were going to get a letter about something. As this was going on, none of the major items the neighborhood needed fixed were addressed. After a decade since the construction, the ground had settled unevenly, and many homes had standing water issues where it would drain after a storm. The rainwater would sit for 5 to 7 days in people's lawns, and more importantly, there had been a legal fight with the town since the community was started about our road being dedicated, meaning the town was responsible for snow removal. Our homeowners association dues included paying for our own snow removal, which we shouldn't have to do, and we were paying an attorney for 10 years to fight this with no resolution in sight. Fast forward to 2 years, and a few of us had had enough and decided to band together to replace the board at the next annual meeting. The existing board got wind of this and hit us all with pages worth of issues with our properties, since if you have outstanding issues, you are not in good standing with the community, thus cannot run for a board position, or even vote for those running. This petty move brought the community even closer, and we all spent the week before the meeting helping each other clean out the Homeowners Association honey-do lists. We took pictures, documented everything. Then we had the US mail certify delivery of each packet with the completed list and photos to the Homeowners Association board, who lived 75 feet away. Come board night, oddly enough, the lawyer was there to give an update that no progress had been made with the township on our dedicated road. He stuck around as we moved to the elections for the next board. We brought our signed petitions to add our names to the ballot. The board says we're not eligible as we all have outstanding issues with our property. We call bullshit with our receipts from the post office that they received our completed lists with documentation. They reply that they haven't reviewed them yet. We tell them that's not our problem and we are in good standing. The lawyer overhearing this states we are eligible to be on the ballot if we can confirm the issues with our homes were resolved prior to the meeting. The Homeowners Association president glares at the lawyer, but the lawyer just shrugs, saying, "The rules are the rules." With the exception of the 5 existing board members voting for themselves and each other, we're voted in nearly unanimously to replace them. I led the revolution because I was tired of the petty BS when there were real problems in the neighborhood. Sadly, the rest of the elected board members voted me as president. I have no idea what I'm doing. But we spent the next few sessions removing all the dumb violations for most of the neighbors. We went through the bylaws to really focus on what's important. What happens next? Ends up, that lawyer was a friend of the previous president and was in no hurry to resolve anything as he was enjoying our excessive bill. I notify him if it's not resolved in the next 6 months we're finding new representation. He was actually good at his job when pressed to do it. He won the case. The town appealed and tried to drag it out. He fast-tracked the appeal as it had been going on for 10 years and we won the appeal too. The town dedicated our road, then the lawyer pressed that it should have been done years ago. It wasn't him slowing down things, but the town. He ends up getting us a settlement from the judge for back pay and us for paying for snow removal that the town was responsible for. We ended up using that settlement to have French drains installed across much of the community to clear the standing water issues. With the money left over, we fixed a lot of the neighborhood issues that the Homeowners Association should have been doing the whole time. Fences and sidewalks in disrepair, replaced dead trees and shrubs, etc. It was great getting all that done without having to hit our capital reserve fund. I remained president until we moved a few years ago. Our family began to outgrow the townhome. Now we live in a new, larger development with a new homeowners association. I was asked to run for a position on it. I replied, "Not a fucking chance, but I will lead a coup d'etat if I need to." As to the original homeowners association president, a 50-year-old male, he wasn't actually eligible to be president. He wasn't on the mortgage, the townhome was in his mom's name, no one knew because he held the books. So being the vengeful leader at the next annual meeting, I wait until ex-Prez shows up with his position to try and get his position back. I tell him, in front of the other 60-plus homeowners, that he can't even be at the meeting, let alone vote or be on the ballot, as his name isn't on the property. But his mom is eligible if she wants to. That was embarrassing enough for the entitled little prick. 5. I was a senior in high school, and my history teacher assigned a 30-hour online course that was worth 30% of our final grade, as our final assignment in the class. On top of that, if you didn't finish the assignment in its entirety, she would give us a 0 on the entire assignment. For those of you doing the math, that means if you missed part of it, and didn't already have a 100 in that class, you failed the class. Not only did she give us a total of 3 class hours to work on this assignment, but she forgot to mention the 3-paragraph essay that was required. It was on the assignment sheet, which none of the class actually read, but it was a single sentence at the bottom of the second page. The assignment was hard enough. I was working 30 to 40 hours a week and barely had enough time to do my regular homework, much less some bullshit 30-hour assignment with non-skippable videos and quizzes. I actually had my brother do about half of it, and I lost out on sleep to finish the rest. I finally finished the shit the day before we had to turn in the assignment. Luckily, I would get to school really early, because as soon as I walked into the school, my friend runs up and says, "Did you see the essay?" And then explained that we were supposed to write an essay on our thoughts of the assignment. Now at first, I was fucking pissed. She never mentioned this essay and made it seem like the entire assignment was online. But then I realized what the essay was supposed to be about. Malicious compliance engaged. In the 30 minutes I had left before turning in the assignment, I turned into a writing machine. The essay only had to be 3 paragraphs. I wrote almost 3 pages. I explained how the assignment was a complete waste of time. I explained my irritation with not getting class time to finish such a large and tedious assignment. I explained how I didn't learn literally anything. I explained how much sleep I lost to complete the assignment, and how several of the people in the class worked near full-time jobs outside of school. And I explained how incredibly inept the overall execution of the assignment was. I got a 0 on the essay part, but I got a 90% on the assignment, which brought my grade up to a B. Several people in my class failed the class because they didn't know about the essay until class started. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 63. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the chat who was keeping me company as I was recording. Streaming while I record. I do those usually Monday or Tuesday if it's something you would like to see. There isn't a set time for them. It really depends on how busy I've been the night before, when I wake up, how many stories I have, but they're generally on Monday or Tuesday, usually Monday. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.